On this video, what I am going to talk to you about is how to make your coil pot. So we are going to learn about how to roll out coils and assemble them so that they become very decorative. They don't need to be bland or kind of ugly. They can be very beautiful. So this techniques that I'm going to be showing you is how you can put together the coil pot. Also available to you is a worksheet that kind of demonstrates, kind of showing you some of the shapes in that, but I'm going to go through all of that. So one of the things that you can do when you're making a coil pot, and what we want to do is either you can start out with a pinch pot as a base, and then we put different designs. Every layer is a little bit different, and then we finish it off at the top so that it is strong and won't kind of come apart. So at no time do you want to just put little balls of clay at the top, because those break off very easily. This is another one, and again it is made with starting out with a pinch pot as its base. And then the other one is to roll out clay so that you start out with a slab. And again, using the different designs, you can also cut out patterns which allow you to make different types of designs, and also come back in using stamps on there as well, so that this is a very functional piece. Normally water doesn't sit in all of them, because as you blend the inside to help support it, because we're not using any slip, it has to have some way of being able to bond to each other. So I'm going to demonstrate that. It is very important that you kind of follow the directions. Otherwise, if you assemble it and you bring it into the kitchen, I go to pick it up and it totally crumbles because it wasn't put together properly, you get to remake it. So what we're going to do is you can start out with making a base. So at this time, what I'm going to do is tilt the camera so that you're going to look at the workplace. I'm going to roll out some clay, turn it so you can see the slab roller, and we'll go from there. So what you can do is, whether or not we have clay that's been pugged, what you can do is take a little bit of your pugged clay. We want to slap it down. And what we want to do is to kind of flatten it so that it can go through the clay roller. So what we're doing is, this probably kind of maybe at a ½ an inch at this point. So now I'm going to tilt it so that it comes over to the clay roller. So when you come to use the clay roller, what you want to do is the blankets. There's always 2 blankets. If you need to, pull up one, set your clay on there. You will then take your blanket and set it over there. Both sides have to make an adjustment for the height of it. So what you will do is, it's already set at 3/8, and this one is at a 1/4, so I need to change it and move it up to 3/8. And then what I want to do, because this isn't like an inch thick, but it is more close to a ½ inch, I can get away with that. And then I'm going to roll the clay through, and then I am going to pick up my clay. And then we're going to come back down and set it here. Now, one of the things that we usually do is, like, how do we get a round circle? We go find a pot in the kitchen that has the diameter that you would like. And then what we want to do is take the poker, and what we want to do is set it on here. And if you've rolled out enough clay for 2 people, you can use it, or I can show you how to, we'll use the scraps here to cut some designs on it that you can incorporate. So then what I'm going to do, When you go to cut, don't go at an angle, but go straight down, because if you go at an angle, you're doing an undercut. So we want to go all the way around, and you can kind of come along here and kind of cut the excess off. And then when you pick this up, you will, and we'll save this, we're going to use this also. Then what we want to do is make a pile, but where you are working, it is very important that you make sure the area that you're working on does not have crumbs from other people working there and gets into any of your clay, so make sure you wipe it down. And then also what we want to do is we're going to come in here and we're going to wipe the edge here, because it'll have rough areas from where you cut it. So I'm going to put that bowl aside. Then what we're going to do is, you do have a board, but you're going to have a board that you've been using. You can continue to use it. I will have a stack of little pieces of newspaper. I am going to set it on this. Mainly it's so that basically doesn't stick to this surface. You can easily pick it up. You can transfer it over to your plaque. And one of the things that you will do is, when you are finished and ready to store it for that day, you have to put plastic down first. Always remember that. So now what we're going to do is learn how to make coils. So one of the things that will make it easier is if you have the pug clay, is just kind of come in here and you can kind of cut it this way and then turn it, cut it again. So you already have some shapes that will accommodate turning it into a coil. So we are going to be learning to coordinate ourselves making coils. I kind of start out just pinching it like this, and then you want to make sure that your surface is not extremely wet, and if it is, but I had some clay there and I need to get rid of it. So, and also make sure your hands are not terribly wet. I do have extra towels around to help you. So then what I want to do is, the motion that you use for rolling out clay is that you go back and forth, and then your light pressure going outward, and that way your clay starts to grow and it will expand and become thinner. So it's really kind of learning to coordinate yourself in rolling out the clay. And so as I do this, I want to make the clay about 3/8 inches again, because you don't want it real thin and you don't want it real thick. The only time you would do it real thick is if you were going to make a large drum or something, then you need, and it was going to be very tall, then those coils would definitely need to be much thicker. So here again, I can kind of twirl this and move it around and make sure that I have a nice coil. Again, I'm looking at something that's more like 3/8. Because I just rolled this out, I really do not need to do anything other than I'm just going to add a little bit of water. If you need to, you can also do basically use some vinegar, because the vinegar, if you recall, is acidic, and it will allow you to come in and it breaks down that surface. We do not want to use slip in this project because it will kind of show and be kind of messy looking. So again, what I do is I am going to roll this around, and I'm going to have this overlap each other here so that I can come in and I'm going to cut through both pieces. So I can remove that, remove this part, and I can add a little bit of vinegar here, kind of put it back. And what I want to do on this first one of the things that we need to do and I need to grab a different tool here. So I want to use a tool that's kind of this type of a shape. So what I want to do is kind of come in here and kind of press it down. You can use a tool like this, or I can come in and I just use one of my fingers to kind of blend that down. But sometimes you're going to find that you will like the tool and do a better job. This way you can move this around so that you can rotate it. And then once you're done, you're going to notice that it kind of has one of those looks of needing a little bit of cleanup. Just take your finger and move it around, smooth it out. I then take my sponge, kind of give it another coat. This gives the first foundation for building your coil pot. It will make it stronger. And then what we're going to do is learn how to make different shapes. So one of the things, if you still have a long coil, if not, you roll out another coil. And some of the basic shapes that we can make is a swirl. And so I can take this and kind of twirl it, and then I can pinch it off. And then I kind of soften that edge, and then I want to rotate that again around and pinch it off so that I am creating a series of these. So one of the things that you're going to do is make yours decorative. You will basically be graded on the decoration, and you need to use probably 4 to 5 different types of decorations. And so I have a series of these, and I was making some earlier. Then once I get done with this, then I'm going to roll out another coil. So I have these kind of shapes. I want them to kind of be kind of the same. I want to make enough that will go all the way around. And so one of the things I can do then is I am going to grab another one of these pieces of clay, and I just kind of squeeze it to get it going, and then set it down onto the tabletop. And what we want to do is come in, and again, what you're doing is back and forth. If it kind of looks like it went square on you, if you gently go back and forth, you can get that to become more round and less square. And so sometimes it naturally will do that. So what I want to do is get this again to be about 3/8. This way we are able to have something to work with. So one of the things, and if it gets too long, just cut that off because you're going to be using it all. But what we want to do is, as you are practicing this, you're going to find that you're going to get more coordinated at it, and that is part of the goal, is learning how to build with coils and at the same time to become coordinated using them. Another type is to take it and you're going to roll it one direction, come down here and pinch it, and then what you do is I kind of fold that over to mend that edge, and then what we do is roll it going back the other direction. So we have that type of a design. Then another type of design that we can do is to do what is called accordion. So what we do is we fold it over and we go kind of back and forth. If some of our clay is a little bit on the drier side, you might find that it's doing too much cracking. If that's the case, then you might need to get a little bit another piece of clay if it does a lot of major cracking. This is still workable. It is just on that borderline, and so I can take this back and forth, and I can make this type of design. I can also have it so where it's split and I have 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and so if I want to, I can cut that one there, 1, 2, 3. I'm going to cut it here so that will be able to see kind of a pattern that will be developed here. So this is a few of the designs here. So now we're going to, that I've made, and so now we're going to attach it. So I'm going to start out and I'm going to kind of curve this. And so at the moment, I'm just going to set it on here so I can see if this will accommodate the pattern that I am thinking about doing. And so sometimes if I come in here, I might have to make an adjustment. And so I want to do repeat. So I'm going to do this here. I'm going to grab another one that I've made earlier, and I am going to set that, and I think I can get those all kind of squeezed in there. So I'll gently pick it up so you can kind of see the kind of a pattern that is developing. So what you then want to do is I'm going to set it on here. I'm kind of making sure that it's going to stay upright. The one thing that I didn't talk about is the alignment of these on top of each other. So when you take coils and align them on top of each other, your walls will go straight up. If I want this to be a little bit more of a bowl, then every time I would have this angled, and every time I put these on here, I would want to set them on the outer side so that my shape could grow outward. If I was going to make something that was more bulbous, like this one here, then you would be putting them up and down on top of each other. Then they're slowly going to, at some point, you're going to go outward, so it's always outward, and then inward, and then inward and inward, and then going straight up if you're going to put a neck on it. So you have to think about those things. Now what we are going to do on the inside here is that we are going to kind of take our thumb, and we are wanting to, if we have one on the bottom, so let's say this is the bottom piece and this is sitting on there. What we're doing is we are literally taking some of that clay and we are blending it, and it kind of acts like a little bit of glue and inner support. So we're going to do that on every level. Do not build it all up and think you're going to get your hand down there to blend it at that time. You blend every level as you're going up, and then you will have no problems. So I basically take my thumb. I want to support my piece on the outside, and what I'm going to do is I will blend side to side and downward so that I am having the clay stick to the bottom coil and the side pieces. And if your clay is too thin, you won't have any clay there to blend. So you have to make sure that you're more about 3/8 inch thickness, and you will be in better shape. So as I go around, I am just supporting the outside. So we are not blending the outside, only on the inside, so that we can make this all kind of come together and hold its shape. So now if I pick it up, you can kind of see on the inside how that is kind of blending together. So then if I wanted, usually what I will do at this point, and as this paper kind of falls apart, make sure you don't get tangled in the paper, into your clay, I mean. So I want to do a support piece right around there. I do have some other pieces kind of rolled out in preparation to make this go a little bit faster. So what I want to do is, again, I am going to come around, and this really is to help anchor the pieces. Again, I can lay it on here. If this was supposed to kind of come outward, then I would want that to set more on the outside. I can come in here and cut those two pieces. I can take a little vinegar on that. Although if your clay is damp enough, you really don't have to do that. It will hold together. Then what I want to do is come in here and I'm going to put pressure, and again my hand is on the outside to support it, and I'm going to blend downward or upward, whichever way you have to kind of get the clay to kind of come together so that you are smoothing out. Most of the times you will have little holes in your pot, so they really do not hold water, but you can make them waterproof. It's just that most of the time they are not. They're very functional in the sense that I use mine in my kitchen for utensils, and you can use them also. I have dried flowers and some of the other ones that kind of work out. I'm going to take my sponge. I come inside here, rotate this. I want to kind of smooth it out a little bit. Then what I want to do is also show, we're going to do another layer. I think I'm going to come in here. These are some of the shapes that I had made. So what I want to do, I try to find the side that kind of looks kind of nice. I'm going to do on this one, I'm going to do every other. I'm going to make sure that I kind of do the same pattern going around. Some of these were just a little bit different sizes, so I gotta make sure that I want to try to make them consistent. And sometimes what will happen is you will get around there and you'll go, you know, I don't have them all matching. And so then you can decide, okay, what am I going to do? And so I'm going to come back and see if I like the idea of just doing the swirls all the way around on this one. And so I just need to make a couple more swirls that go in both directions. So again, it's a matter of rolling it out. I just kind of take the end here, then we just kind of twirl it this way, come down, pinch it. I just kind of blend that a little bit. I'm going to come back, go like this. I'm going to make sure that I've got a consistent, I'm going to do two, and this will all match all the way around. Now sometimes what I've done is cut shapes. You could cut squares, you could cut hearts, and I forgot what I was doing, and so I did not make the one that I needed to. So I want to kind of swirl that, come in here, blend that over. I'm going to swirl that, going this direction. And then what I want to do is take a look at it, make sure that I've got the pattern going consistent all the way around, and I do. This one just needs to be adjusted. So now I have these that are all put together, and so then what I want to do is, again, supporting the back side, I am blending it. I also blend them to each other and downward, sideways. What you're doing is supporting it. This way, the outside, you don't have any slip that is hanging over, looking ugly, not working. It's kind of hard to clean up. And so as I do this, the one thing I want to mention is sometimes you might be in an area where you're trying to grab some of the clay and you go, it doesn't look like I have enough clay to blend it. So then I will tell you another little trick to help support it if you thought you did not have enough clay to do that. So at this point I'm kind of looking at it, and you'll notice that sometimes it has a little bit of roughness to it. So one of the things that you can do is you can always take a little ball of clay, and let's say you're looking at it and there was one that just didn't seem to want to cooperate when you were wanting to blend it. So right here what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little piece of clay, and then I'm just going to blend it both directions, and that will give it some support. If you find that when you're doing that it doesn't want to come together and you're worried that you don't have enough, and I see another one that is a little bit weak, again a little piece of clay will just do fine. Not a lot. You're not trying to put a big slab of clay in there, just a little piece of clay. You don't need this to be the thickness being 3,000, you know, where it's so thick that it won't dry, and then it has so much weight it's ridiculous. So there's no taking a big piece and just trying to shove it on there. It doesn't work that way. Okay, so now on this next level, what I want to do is show you a couple of the other beautiful coils that you can do. So what we want to do is I'm going to take two of these that I've made, and I'm going to come in here and just stretch it a little bit. I'm going to do it to both of them, and then what I want to do is a pattern that is going to be similar to this one up here that would be on the top, but I'm going to put it down in the middle here, and the way that that will look is kind of a swirl that kind of comes together. So what we'll do is take this and we're going to roll this together just like this, and I'm going to rotate this as I am bringing it together. If you have to, you can always kind of come back and forth, but I try to keep it, because at some point sometimes what happens is it's really kind of difficult to get them both to come together. So what you have to do is kind of overlap them and just come back and forth and try to make sure that they don't get too out of sync. And so I want to, as I go, twirl it, trying to make sure that they both are twirling consistently. So now I have this type of coil that I could use if this was going to be the top, but it's really just another layer, and I need to kind of anchor it more. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll these together so it's a much tighter one, because I'm not finishing it off as a top yet, and so it will have this type of a pattern. So then what I'm going to do is come around, I'm going to set this right on top. I'm going to come in here, and again I want this to overlap, so I'm going to overlap them, cut them, and then you should be able to come in here. I'm going to add some vinegar to both of those. I'm going to kind of pinch them together. So now I have this pattern developing. Again, on this one, I'm going to support my hand. I am going to kind of press down, and I want this to be anchored to the level below it. And so as I do this, you're going to find there's probably some areas that are going to be a little bit of a gap. I can live with that little gap, but I do have to have some of these others anchored. These are more decorative pieces that are very functional, and as I come around, just rotate it, blend it downward, and then I'm going to come back, and I need to, because it looks a little rough. If you leave your stuff too rough and you glaze it, it's going to act like a little knife and it's going to kind of cut you. So at this point, I've really kind of moved along here, but what you're going to find is you probably will not get this far to start with on the first day. So what do? Sometimes you might only get 1 or 2 layers done. Sometimes I will take a damp cloth, make a lot of my shapes, and then kind of assemble. So the way we're going to store them so you can work on them every day is that you are going to take your plastic. You're going to have your plaster board. Right now I just have this board. I don't have a smaller plaster one. Then what you're going to do is, we have a lot of little rags. What you have to do with that rag is that we are going to take it, and we want it only on the top layer, not on the bottom or on this hanging too far down the sides. The top needs to be to stay soft. If your clay is then soft, if this stays moist here, then when you add the next piece the next day and you go to blend it, it's going to hold. If this piece totally dries and you take a wet piece and you think that you're going to just put it on there, blend it, and it's going to hold together, it will not hold together. And you'll end up finding that you have to start over. Then what you're going to do is you will want to take your plastic and kind of wrap it around, secure it. If you need to take a piece that you got to set up on top there that will just dry to hold it, then what you're going to do then is put this in your cubicle and then take it out the next day and continue to work. If you have because your boards are a little bit bigger, if you have some that is more like plastic and you have a towel that you wanted a small one, and you have it damp so that you can also cover that up, make sure that you just don't lay these on plastic and think that they're not going to dry out. Usually you have to have some type of moisture that's going to keep them so that they are very workable. So then this basically ends this video on how you are going to construct your coil pot. And you're going to find that, again, I do have a sheet that kind of goes back over it so that you can kind of follow it. It also shows you some of the different designs, and I will have some sample art pieces. I also recommend that you go onto the web and put in decorative coil pots and see what other designs and what other artists have made, because they are very beautiful. And so I think you will enjoy the process. So I will end this video, and then so when you come in to school after you've watched it on the Google Classroom, you may start.